Hello everyone, Cutting Tool Designer here. Back to part 2 of moving the CNC router into the new shop. Went ahead and put the X-axis motor on. Of course it's kind of tight since I've got everything hooked into the gear rack and the steppers have a lot of drag on. I have one Y-axis motor on this side over here. And you can see it a little bit more difficult to turn or to move. Of course the other ends of the wires might be touching each other and that actually creates a magnetic feedback. So I haven't wired those up to the drivers yet. So next step, we're going to go ahead and put the Z-axis mount back on and we'll show you that. Alright, so here's our Z-axis assembly. It's going to go back down through the rollers. I'm going to feed the lead screw into the anti-backlash nut. And this whole assembly, of course, has the lead screw, flex wash, flex coupling, thrust bearing, another thrust bearing, and another radial bearing inside with a attachment collar. Of course the motor mounts at the top. So what we're going to do is these rails have to go down in between the rollers, and then I got to line up the lead screw. Once we get in there, alright, just sliding down, it's a pretty tight fit. Try and line up the lead screw. Alright, then I'm going to turn that. And it looks like we got it lined up. Now we got to feed it down through the bottom sets of rollers. A little tighter. Alright. Looks like we got that on. Alright. Pretty rigid. Didn't really have to make any adjustments on any of this stuff. Okay, so it gets our Z-axis assembly back on. Of course, the next step will be to put the motor back on and get this bracket remounted. I'll leave it down until I get the motor back on. Just makes it easier access. And what I'll need to do is there's a socketed cap screw that clamps the top of the coupler to the shaft, and then there's also a set screw that goes onto the flat of the motor. So there's our Z-axis motor. Need to get these screws out. Should have done that before we did this. Is what we want to do is get that set screw lined up with the flat on the shaft. You really don't have a lot of room in here to get you in for that shot. Yeah, I think I'll be in the way with that camera. So I have the set screw lined up so it's pointing this way. There's the flat. Actually, there's two flats on this shaft. So what I want to do, lay this in here, kind of heavy. Alright. And just kind of line that up. I'm going to get the right, it's a pretty small Allen wrench. Forget which size it is. I think it's a 5/64. It's pretty small. Yeah. I'm going to move that around. Make sure it's sitting on that flat. Tighten that set screw down. And I believe that the socketed cap screw, which I see over there, is a 3/32, I believe. Let's see here. Nope, that's too big. So it must be a 5/64. Yeah. No, 5/64. Doesn't need to be overly tight. The set screw pretty much drives it, and the other one just keeps it wanting to expand and contract as the motor turns. So now I can turn this and line our bolts back up and get them screwed back in. So I will do that off camera because it's kind of hard to get in there with the wrench, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So I'll be back after we get that finished mounted, and then we'll get this mounted back on. Alrighty, got the motor all mounted up and solid again. So what we're going to do is get this bracket mounted back up. I need to take the nuts off and try not to let this slide too far out of whack. Those off. That's next one over. Here we go. Get that washer back on. Get that nut started back. It's a nice thing about all these T-slots and these aluminum extrusions, is you can connect just about anything to them. And using carriage bolts, these are 5/16 carriage bolts. The square part of the head fits into the slots. It doesn't rotate. So let's get this loosened up. See if we can get this out far enough. No, it doesn't look like it will. Alright, so we have to do this together. There we go. Alright, so let's get this nut started back on. And get to this one. And this is what secures the wiring for the plumbing for the spindle and carrier chain for the Z-axis, and also for the Z-axis motor. Remember exactly where this is at. It's got plenty of travel in it, so we'll get it back fairly close. We can do fine adjustments at a later point. Just need to get it mounted for now. Here we go. And that can easily be slid up and down. Reconnect the Z-axis motor. Okay, so that's ready to go. And then we can work on getting the spindle put on. But before we put the spindle on, I think we're going to get the other Y-axis motor for the main gantry put on over there, and I'll see if I can get it set up with a decent camera shot. We'll move that up out of the way. Alright. Plug and play. Okay. We'll get you set up so we can take a look at putting the Y-axis for the gantry back on and go from there. Alright, here we go. Now, the shoulder bolt. Remember when I said that there was a small shim on there to give it enough spacing so that it rotates? In the first video, I don't know if you can see it on there now, but it's very thin shim, and I had actually lost it. And if you go back and look at that one, you'll see whenever I took this off and turned it over and pulled that shoulder bolt out, that shim actually landed on my forearm. I could see it in the video, and then whenever I turned it like this, it dropped somewhere. I actually had a floor magnet that was able to find it. So I was like, oh, I don't want to have to try and make another shim, because that's a precision shim. So anyways, that being said, let's get back to business. So I'll start by holding this on, getting this put in most of the way, and then we can tighten it up. See, this should be a floating joint then, once we get that point. With that shim, here we go, this now floats. And now what we have to do is raise it up so that the gear fits into the gear rack. And then we have the socketed cap screw with the spring and the washer for tensioning. So we're going to get that lined up with the bolt there, and then we can get this tensioned back up. So, and now it's in place, and I'll adjust the tension when we get to it, and then of course we hook the motor back up. Okay, well, that takes care of most of the big mechanicals, other than getting the spindle mounted back on and doing some wiring. So I'll be back at you here in just a second. Okay, here comes the fun part. We've got to get these carriage bolts basically lined up so we can slide this on. And this is not fun and easy. Okay, which one's not lined up? Neither one of them. Gotta try and get behind it. Rotate them. So the last thing I want to do is drop this thing. And it's not exactly light. I got one in there. Yeah, gonna be a pain. Alright, so I think what we'll do is I'll do this offline. I don't want to waste your time watching me fumble with this thing, but I'll get it on and we'll get it wired back up. Be right back. Alrighty. That was fun. A little awkward and heavy. Would have been easier with two people, but I didn't feel like getting in somebody else. So anyways, what we will do now is hook up our coolant lines, and again, These are just compression fittings in here. Work just fine with this plastic. And slide that one in. Make sure it's down the whole way. Alrighty, and I believe that's 9/16. Yeah. It's easier to do the one first. So we'll get this. You don't have to be very tight with it, just snug. They do a good job of sealing. Never had any leaks. Last couple of years I've been using this, so. Yep, and that's that. And then the next thing to do, get you up a little bit more of that. That's probably getting blown out by that light. Sorry about that. Didn't notice that at first. And then this is keyed so that it only goes in one way. And just a spin nut to lock it in place. Alright, there we go. Spindle is reinstalled. And all the motor drives are back on and plugged in. So all I gotta do now is some electrical work. And get the computer running. And get a monitor set up. So anyhow, that's going to wrap it up for this episode, part 2 of moving the router up into the new shop. So, okay, well, I got to work on some wiring stuff. Get everything wired up on the control side, get the computer, take a look at it. I think I need to get another hard drive. Hope I can get everything off of it that was on there, so I don't have to go through and do all the settings and everything again and reinstall Mach 3. And I have a line on the monitor. It's the right size for the touch screen that I have. And when we get to that, we'll do that next. And after that is I got to finish getting a 220 line put in. And then I got to hook up the VFD. Now I was requested, I had a request on one of the postings of my build of this machine if I could do a little bit more in depth on the wiring of the 220, wiring the VFD, and all that neat stuff. So we'll do basically a whole episode on that. So. Alright, well, that's it for now. If you want to keep following along, please subscribe. If you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up. Appreciate it. And until next time, into part 2, stay tuned for part 3. Take care.